Hello everyone and welcome back. So today we're working with something a little different than centipedes. I'm not really much of a roach guy, but these are super interesting. These are called Pseudoglomeris magnifica, the emerald roach. They're really cool because they're this metallic green color, as you can see here. And these ones aren't quite fully grown yet. The males get wings and all that. But anyway, there's not a lot of available information online about these, so I figured I would talk to you guys a little bit about them. I have a very small container here, but what I intend for you guys to do is take this care guide and blow it up. Put it in a much bigger container. This container is just for show. I want it to fit all on my table. So you're going to want something that's like a 5-gallon or even a 10-gallon size for a starter colony. And one thing that's very, very important with this species is super high cross ventilation. Anyways, it's really straightforward. Other than that, you're going to need some peat. Not very much, just a small amount to cover the bottom. You want some dry bark, sanitized of course, and then their diet is really straightforward. You need pollen, or you need this pollen substitute right here, and then you need some fresh fruit. So let's go ahead and get right into the tutorial video. So again, we got a small show container here. You're going to want something much bigger than this, but this is going to give you the basic idea. You're going to need lots of cross ventilation. These like extremely high ventilation. Also, the nymphs, if you are breeding these, they can crawl up smooth surfaces. So the ceiling lids that I use on my centipede enclosures, get one of those. So ideally, if you look at my centipede tutorials, those tubs that I have for those, that's about the size that you're going to want for a starter colony, and you're going to want that seal around the top. And then you can have really small holes. The nymphs are a bit smaller than these holes, so you'd need smaller than this for nymphs. Or you can use plastic screen mesh and then just hot glue it in there. That works great. But anyway, let's just go ahead and start putting this together, and then you guys can do it yourself in a bigger setup. So watch this. We're going to go ahead and put the peat in. Okay, we got the thin layer in. It's nice and dry, as you can see. You do not want to wet this at all. Despite what you might think about this cockroach, it does like it very dry for the most part. And again, high ventilation. So now we're going to want to set up some bark so they can climb on it. Vertical pieces are very important. They like to climb a lot. So we're going to just set some up kind of like this on the sides. And your enclosure is obviously going to be bigger, so you're going to use bigger pieces of bark. So let's go ahead and now put the bark that's going to be on the bottom for hiding. First part of this, I put 2 little pieces of bark to prop it up a little bit above the substrate layer. These are pushed down into the substrate, so it's going to prop it up just a little bit. Now we got our big piece of wood on there. We're going to add a couple more layers crisscrossing, so there's lots of surface for them to set on. Now it's pretty packed in there with wood, as you guys can see. You're going to want your enclosure kind of like this. Again, much bigger though. So now let's go ahead and explain how we're going to go ahead and put the food in here, just to keep it in an area that's not going to mold or anything like that. And then I'll explain humidity and temperature. So let's put some of that pollen in here. We're going to want to put it just right here on the wood, or somewhere that it's not going to fall into that substrate. You're going to want to keep these enclosures immaculately clean, no matter what. Change your fruit all the time. Watch your pollen. If it's gotten moist at all, dump it out, put new pollen in. So let's add a little bit of pollen here. Alright, let's get some of this. Right here. We want to keep it nice and clean. So any of that stuff that falls, like what you saw down there, if it's in the substrate, we're going to go ahead and scoop that stuff out. So now we cleaned it off. We got all of it isolated right there on that top piece of bark. And now we're going to go ahead and put our fruit here on the bark as well. Alright, now our enclosure is pretty much ready to go. We got all of our bark, our food in there. We got our substrate. All we need to do is put some humidity in there. Now what we're going to want to do is about 1/4 of the enclosure needs to be humid. So what I do is I say spray only one corner, only one small corner of the enclosure like this. So I'm going to go ahead and make that part of the enclosure and only that part humid, and I'm going to avoid getting any of the spray on this pollen. We do not want that pollen to get wet at all. Alright, now we got our one corner misted. Looks nice. This is exactly what your setup should look like. Now we're going to go ahead and get those cockroaches set in there. Here they are. We're going to check them out in detail one more time before we put them in the enclosure, because they are absolutely stunning. I hope the camera can pick up the detail, because in person they're amazing. So let's go ahead and get them added. Alright, we put them all in there. I couldn't do it on camera because it'd be a little tricky, but they all pretty much hid right away. They really like that bark. They're going to love the fruit and the pollen that I put in there for them. But we're going to get these guys put back in the bigger enclosure that I had set up for them. But I hope my miniature enclosure tutorial works for you guys. Just size it up like I said. Do it exactly like this. Daily, keep only this one side humid. Try to keep everything dry. 75 to 85 degrees works great for them for breeding. Don't leave any rotten stuff in there. If you see anything decaying or any wet pollen or anything like that, get it out right away. Anything in the substrate, take it out right away if you see any scraps of fruit that have fallen or any of the pollen. And then another thing, when these guys shed, or molt rather, you're going to want to take those out. They don't eat them. They just leave them down there. So just to keep the enclosure clean at all times, remove any debris, anything you see. Can't stress that enough, and I can't stress the high ventilation enough. Anyways, I hope this helps you guys, since there isn't really information on them online. But thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share this video everywhere, and you guys have an absolutely wonderful day.